Welcome to Between Over and Next with your hosts, Holli and Robert, a happily married couple who explore the space between what was, what is, and what's to come. From career changes to navigating life's uncertainties, this dynamic duo will empower you to live your happiest life at every age and stage. So, get ready because your journey with Holli and Robert starts now.
Welcome, everybody, to Between Over and Next, where we explore the space between what was, what is, and what's to come. We're your hosts, Holli and Robert, and we are so glad that you're joining us for our episode 3 of our podcast.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Holli. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited about this particular episode because I think it's so important that we actually dissect the words between over and next.
Okay.
And continue to tell people what inspires us and why it inspires us and how it actually impacts us to do what we do.
Okay. I'm willing to do that.
Oh, that's nice of you. So I know we mentioned in an earlier episode about how we named and why we named this podcast Between Over and Next, but why don't you tell everybody really what happened? Because I still can't believe that this was us just watching TV.
Yeah, well, you know, we enjoy documentaries, and this documentary happened to be with someone, and actually a cast of people who we very much enjoy as people, and enjoy their work, their body of work that they've done. And the documentary was called If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast. It was done in 2017 by Carl Reiner, who hopefully you know from his very long list of television accolades, both acting and directing and producing and executive producing
And movies
creating and film and producing talented offspring as well. And he had, you know, basically all of his friends in the film, in the documentary.
Well, but his friends are his age. They're 90-year-olds, which are called, it's interesting. I have a whole sheet of all of the ages, Robert, the different words for people in each decade. So 90-year-olds are called nonagenarians. We are, what are we again? We are
Sexygenarians.
Yes, sexygenarians.
Isn't that what we are? That's not what we are?
No, we are sexagenarians. Yes.
Okay.
It's perfect for us. So anyone between 60 and 69. But so he asked, Carl Reiner posed the question to all of his friends that are in their 90s and beyond, what's the secret to living into your 90s and loving every minute of it? And these people have had a lot of success, right? And
That's putting it mildly.
right, and they are aging. So they danced about it and joked about it and philosophized about how to stay young at heart. And I think that's a topic that I think matters to everybody, no matter how old you are.
I agree. I mean, after all, what's the alternative?
I want to experience Between Over and Next, and we're going to talk more about that as we continue this conversation. So Norman Lear, right, who is a longtime friend of Carl Reiner's and someone who's also, right, has had many TV shows that we love, like All in the Family and Jeffersons and Maude and, my goodness, so many.
It goes on and
right.
on.
But he describes Between Over and Next as not obsessing with the past, which is over, and nor with the future, which is next. So not only did we talk a little bit about the documentary that we watched in an earlier episode, we also talked about 2 other words that I think that we've talked about a lot. Okay, even when we were naming the podcast, Robert, is
And it went through a number of iterations.
Right.
We
So I
didn't
know.
just
So this is
wake up,
well, you
much like we did Wedding Podcast Network. I knew right from the start. I knew, Wedding Podcast Network, and the show names came to me immediately.
Well, I am, by the way, talking about, you mentioned Wedding Podcast Network. It would be remiss of me not to mention anyone who's watching us on YouTube to be looking at our branded apparel, which we love doing. Well, because it all starts with the name of the business and then the branding of the business. And boy, there's a lot go into that. Right. And I love our branded apparel that we have had since the early 2000s. Well, talking about the names of this podcast, okay, you would say your first one, if I recall right, it was No Coincidences.
Yep, that's right.
Right? Then you said, we talked about like meant to be. And then we had a number of other names, and we really cared about what we named this. I can't get over it because they've been signs from the universe. So the two words that we mentioned in our first episodes, one was serendipity, which means unexpected good luck. 5,000% believe that this was meant to be to watch the documentary with Norman Lear.
I agree. And I think it was actually on our list to watch at an earlier date.
But we didn't watch it.
We didn't watch it. It stayed on the list. And maybe had we watched it, let's say a year ago, year and a half.
Oh, it would never resonated like it does right now.
Yeah.
No, everything happens at the right time, in the right place.
Because we were also distracted with other things a year ago.
Yeah, it was
year and a half.
We were in a different space and place with what we were doing. And that's okay. Now we're focusing on us and how we want to serve you, our listeners and our viewers. So how can we do that? So the other word, Robert, okay, which is very similar to your no coincidences, is the definition of the second word. So the first word was serendipity, right, which means unexpected good luck. And then synchronicity, which means meaningful coincidences. So here it is, okay, you said no coincidences, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, do you know that ever since we made the final decision to call this Between Over and Next, that I keep seeing and hearing words next and lessons learned? I see it on social media posts. I see it on emails. I hear it on podcasts. I just recently was listening to Julia Dreyfus's new podcast, Wiser Than Me, and she's interviewing her first guest is Jane Fonda. Well, this is unbelievable, Robert, and I know I told you this already, but I'm going to share it with all of you. Jane Fonda met Julia Louis-Dreyfus at Norman Lear's 100th birthday party. This is revealed on the podcast. Okay, that is a little cuckoo to me that that's what happened. And, okay, the reason I heard today on Kelly and Mark that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was inspired to start her podcast because she didn't feel enough women, older women, were heard. And here it is. Her first guest was Jane Fonda, who she ran into at Norman Lear's 100th birthday party and had as her first guest on her podcast. So I thought that was fascinating. I was watching just this past weekend J-Lo's documentary Halftime. And on the back of her shirt, it says, may your next move be your best move. So here it is. I have seen the word next probably 50 to 100 times since we named this Between Over and Next.
It's place and time. That's,
It is the law of attraction a little bit at work.
I think a lot at work. We certainly believe that the universe has a plan, not a blueprint. But a plan, certainly.
Well, I think that while we're on this journey called life, okay, there's a lot of things about Between Over and Next, and I'm going to encourage all of you listening and watching to explore your own meaning of Between Over and Next as we're talking about this, okay? But what I do want to tell you, Robert, is I believe that it's so important to embrace the unknown. And I do believe you don't know what you don't know until you know it. I'm on a mission to share what we know so you know it, and then you are empowered to do better and be better. So let me tell you what I know now, Robert.
Go ahead.
Why this podcast now? Okay. This is what's next. This is what's now. This is what's new. I believe, like you said before, like last year, this wouldn't have even been on our radar. It is the right time in the right place, meaning right here in our home studio in H2 with the right person, which means you.
Thank you.
Next to me, right? By my side. Okay. You are my favorite person who I love,
Yes.
but more importantly, I like doing life with.
Yes. The importance of like.
It is. And we're going to talk about that too. But
it
we figured,
sucks,
what?
It would suck if you
No,
if you
like
don't
is a
like the
very,
person.
very important part of relationship. So we figured out a lot along the way and have accomplished so much. So the time is now to share. Also, I believe that we understand and cope better in the moment because of the experiences we've had as a daughter, as a son, as a mother, as a father, as colleagues, as friends, as family members. I believe what I do know is that between being single to married to becoming parents of children to teens to young adults and witnessing their first 2 decades gives us so much more insight because we can reflect on our own life and now we're watching them from 0 to now. I love being 60. And I think that is a real important part of this.
I didn't, certainly in my late 50s, I didn't really anticipate this kind of pivot, this shift again of
the next chapter.
feeling. And I guess,
Right?
we're seeing it and hearing it more because I think more influential, vocal,
Famous people.
visible people, right, are kind of, talking about how that is the best part of life.
And I think it could be the best no matter what age you are. But I think you're absolutely right. I think we are now seeing, especially through video and visual media, right? Older people talking more about how important it is to recognize the life you're living and to learn from it along the way. So the other thing is the more you practice hanging with the discomfort of the I don't know-ness, rather than trying to distract yourself from it or solve your way out of it, the more strength and trust that you can handle whatever life throws at you. You need to allow a little more ease, a little less struggle in the in-between phases of your life. And you need to trust what's next. What's meant to emerge will emerge in the perfect way at the perfect time. So I think we all need to really focus on what's happening for you rather than to you. And that, again, is all about awareness. So, Robert, I want to ask you a question before we start diving into the words between over and next. If you knew then, when we started Wedding Podcast Network in 2005,
Right.
almost 2 decades ago, what you know now, producing between over and next, what would you do differently?
I think the only thing that I might have done differently is bringing more awareness to podcasting. I don't think
Like you did with video.
Yeah, I don't
Like we
think
did with
I
video.
dedicated enough time making the world aware of the power of podcasting.
But we were limited in our outlets. We were very early.
Beyond early. Even when we had the opportunity to have the ear of people who, had they gotten it, would have been able to put us in a position where more people would have known about it.
And we could have helped more people. And we could have helped the industry at large more. But this was your brainchild, too. I mean, every one of our brands, for the most part, really was you. I mean, my belief is so strong in you that every time you said, Holli, I wanted, like you saw podcasting coming on the scene. And I said, okay. But I loved it. I loved it. So I will tell you what I would have done differently, knowing what I know now,
Right.
and knowing and being, what, 18 years older than we were then, which wow. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I mean, our kids were 10 and younger. Different time.
Weren't even teenagers yet.
But I will tell you, I would have never stopped Wedding Podcast Network. And you know that. You know that. But I'll tell you something. I love the process. And that's why I'm so grateful we're back. So most importantly, I'm extra excited to be on air with you because we want to encourage everyone to live in the moment. And no matter what you do, we want it to make you happy. So right now, we are going to invite our listeners to write those 3 little important words: between, over, and next. I'm writing them. I did this exercise, and Robert's going to do it with me now. I wrote over, I wrote next, and then I wrote between. So if you can follow that, because over is, well, we're going to talk about that. So if you write on a piece of paper in a journal, right, I want you, whether it be along with us or whenever you want, okay, list your thoughts or phrases that come to mind, because at the end of the day, it's your meaning that's most important. So Robert, before I share all of the things that I've been thinking about, you tell me those 3 words. Just first of all, overall, tell me what your thoughts are about between, over, next before we dissect each word. What does between, over, next mean to you?
Well, it proves to me that life is always in flux. Nothing is ever stagnant, at least not in our lives. And because of that, there's an ebb and flow, and there's always endings. And then sometimes there's a breath in between. And then there are, the beginnings.
So that's
the next
to me the key word,
steps.
right? Like, I feel like every time you say over, it's like saying beginning. I feel like every time.
Yeah, and I don't, I get.
In an optimistic way.
Right. But I get what you feel about Wedding Podcast Network.
Thank you.
In wanting to continue that. I may not have seen it as defined as it was at the time, but it was over.
You see,
for me.
But listen, to me, weddings, as we've discussed, and we believe this to our core, that they're recession proof. And that there's always going to be a bride and a mother of the bride and a groom.
Yes.
We had a show, Grooms with a View. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, we had 11 shows on the network, and you're the one, you made it a network, okay?
Right.
So, first of all, I'm excited to be doing this one because we are going to be incorporating parts of Wedding Podcast Network.
Right.
Into this, because it's just part of our DNA, Robert. Thank you for saying you understand why I didn't want it to be over. And I'm not saying I'm asking you to continue it right now, even though I believe we can pick up exactly where we left off. I want you to know.
It's not over in a sense because
it
lives and it gets downloaded.
So go check it out, everybody.
Every single day.
Yeah, but it's also because we did approach it with evergreen content. So, which means really everlasting. Not dated, okay?
Right.
So, to me, between over and next, first of all, I brainstorm like I always do, and I think about it. And to me, it means yesterday, today, tomorrow. It means the past, the present, the future. It means full circle moments. I think this is a full circle moment coming back to podcasting. We have the courage to do it.
Right. We never really left
and the confidence, and you know what you're doing with all of this,
and all of the podcasts that we produced for others.
And that's right. So it's also connecting the dots.
Right.
It's hindsight and it's foresight. It's the road ahead, the road behind. Okay, we said beginnings. And I think about it, beginnings, endings, and birthdays. I love birthdays, right?
Yes.
Every year. It's like looking forward to
anyone
something
who
new.
ever met you knows you love birthdays.
So it's the decades of our lives, okay? It's earlier, it's later, it's ready. So over, let's focus on the word over, okay?
Okay.
So over to me means recognizing endings, letting go, something I tell myself and others, bless and release.
But I think one of the things that I'm going to do and be differently as I move into how you've, put it down here in the golden years, right? I'm not going to just expect the respect and the attention that I think I should get at this age. I'm going to prove and demonstrate that I should get that. The same reason why people pay us. It's not because of what we do. It's because of what we know. And we only do that. We only know that because of our years of doing. That's how you know. You can't know without doing. And that's the problem with so much of the so-called experts out there, is they're experts in theory, but they're not experts in experience. They talk about doing things, but they may never have done them. Right? And nothing against someone who's young. But how can someone who has only been on the planet for 2+ decades, between 2 and 3 decades, how could they possibly know as much, or they think they may know more, than someone who's been on the planet for 6 or 7 decades?
Well, listen, there's a lot of...
Just common sense tells you that someone
totally
who's been
agree with
around
you.
longer would know more.
So with over, okay, that is every day, right? Is over, right? Like whatever we just said is over, right? But sometimes it's about one door closing and another opening. And then also what I truly believe, once it's over, what's next is meant to be. So then you have next, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's to me all about mapping a future. It's new beginnings. It's opening to creative next steps, the next level, the next big thing, the anticipation of tomorrow,
Right.
and forward movement. And by the way, something next always comes.
Yeah.
There's adventure, there's wonder. So I just...
Whether you anticipate it or
no
not,
matter
it's
what,
coming.
It's coming, right? And then I love, because then you got Norman Lear's wisdom. Because he described the space and time in between over and next as a hammock, or as this moment. And this is between is living in the moment. It is embracing today. It means not waiting for the future. It means living your life consciously, aware that each moment is a gift. And the ability to be in the present moment is a major component of mental wellness. So that is something we will also continue to discuss on this podcast, because mental wellness matters. You don't see the mental. And lots of people are having a hard time.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need to fuel your mind with better thoughts and better beliefs. So I encourage you to make space for whatever the next thing you want. So the other thing is, there's also wisdom, as you just said, to be gained within the pause between the what's over and next.
Right.
That beautiful and sign of ours.
Because whether you pay attention to that moment or not, that moment is there. And I think a lot of people don't pay attention to that space, those breaths that you take between
the past and the future.
Past and the future.
Right? The then and the now.
Because it's kind of like, reaching the intersection. You have to think for a moment which way to turn. Right. And if you're just acting purely on instinct, you might end up on the wrong road.
And I also thought about something that
You're
I think
not thinking about it first.
Well, you have to be mindful, right? And pay attention to the now, right now, okay? And then I also thought not only of this whole between part is the journey, it's that dash. It's the dash. And I remember reading that book and that poem.
The space in between.
The space in between. So ask yourself, do you settle in and relax, swinging freely through that space between expectations and doings and results and plans? I think there is something awesome about aging and the knowledge that we gain along the way and what matters most and what we truly believe can make you happy, feel happy. I'm encouraging everyone to just keep dreaming big, whatever that is, to never give up. And a lot of people say they figure it out at around 40. I do believe that we know so much more than our younger self. And I think it's harder to be young.
Of course.
Don't you think it's harder to be young?
I think younger people today have it easier than we had it.
Still.
But they're filled with information that we never had access to.
So I'm going to encourage everyone to give yourself permission to forge a new path with confidence and courage, to find your happy place, to do great things, to do what you want, to create your best life, regardless of your age or background, okay? I believe it's the one thing you'll learn from Robert and I is that we love what we do. And we want Between Over and Next to be stories that are going to enlighten you, to know that you're not alone in what was, but it really is the best yet to come. So I've been saving this card. And again, talk about serendipity, unexpected good luck, receiving this card for our anniversary, and synchronicity. To me, I'm like, again, this card to me sums up this episode. Because number one, most importantly, I'm celebrating you, Robert, and I'm celebrating everybody that is with us today.
Okay.
Okay? And this is what the card said.
I would have had a confetti cannon ready.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah. Except.
So the card says, here's to the past and the joys we've known. Here's to the present, this day all your own. Here's to the future. May every new day bring all life's nicest and best things your way. That to me says everything about Between Over and Next.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Holli. I never thought I would actually enjoy being in my 60s. I thought it wouldn't be as thrilling as my 50s. But it's a much different experience as I move into that decade. I didn't really expect to feel as positive and as hopeful as I do in terms of what this decade will look and feel like for us.
I'm going to tell you what I'm hopeful for, because when I look at the different words for people in each decade, you know what? 60 is almost more in the middle than not. We have so much more that's coming next.
Okay.
And I'm so happy I get to do it with you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same. Thanks for tuning in to Between Over and Next. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it meaningful and insightful.
If you value it to be worthwhile, please share it with your friends and family.
We would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to write a review for us. Your feedback will help us continue to create content that resonates with you.
And don't forget, in the show notes, you can find all the relevant links mentioned in this episode, from accessing free downloads to visiting our website and more.
If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Simply send us an email. Our email address is hello@holliandrobert.com. We're always excited to connect with our listeners.
So until next time, thank you again for joining us on Between Over and Next.
Thank you for listening to Between Over and Next, the podcast that navigates the twists and turns of life with courage, laughter, and a whole lot of inspiration. Tune in every Tuesday to hang out with Holli and Robert on your favorite podcast platform. Visit holliandrobert.com and follow them on social media to ignite your passion and fuel your dreams.